Hello, my friend, and welcome to episode number 103, 103. And the topic for today is, should we plan to have sugar? So, this is something which I just thought of because this is some work that I have done on myself. And I, while I was drafting this podcast, I was actually very, very, very drowsy, very sleepy, as I had just had a lot of sugar in my body. So that was basically like I had my usual smoothies, which is not so high in sugar. It is just rich, as in it has some peanut butter, it has some protein powder, it has some cocoa, cacao nibs, it has chia seeds. So you can understand like what's happening in my stomach when this big glass of smoothie goes in my stomach. It stretches. So I have it slowly, slowly. So I had that. Then I'd had 2 cup of teas with sugar. And then by like 2:30 p.m., I'd had a massive omelette, a vegetable omelette with 2 eggs and all the veggies and no carbs. So just vegetables is the carb and a little bit mayonnaise. But I was like super drowsy after this meal. And I was like, what's happening? I have this every day. Why am I feeling so drowsy? And I didn't even like eat it fast, but I just ate it like with my usual speed, and I was like, I don't get it. Why am I feeling drowsy? That's when I realized I had those 2 cups of tea with sugar. Now I don't generally have them. I have this meal, and then it's my dinner, and I maintain on 3 meals a day. Before I used to maintain on 2 meals a day with a lot of willpower, but now I'm able to maintain with 3 meals a day, 3 meals, not gaining weight. Optimal health is going on. And I'm thinking, like, why did I feel so drowsy? It's just because of those 2 cups of sugar, 2 cups of tea with sugar. And then when I had that omelette, my insulin, my sugar was all skyrocketing and I was super sleepy. And I generally do this focus mate sessions. It's a focus app wherein there is always this other human on the other side on video, and you commit to each other about doing something, getting some work done. So I told her that I'm gonna like just draft a podcast and I'll see what I can do. And I immediately was like, I immediately, like, when our session started, I was like, I'm sitting in the chair, I'm writing down that what I want to do is actually just take a nap because I'm so drowsy. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna meditate for like 5 minutes with my eyes closed. And I allowed myself that, and I meditated and I took my nap. And my thought, that shaming thought, you shouldn't have had so much sugar, you shouldn't have had so much sugar, suddenly slowed down. And I was like fresh, up and about. So 5 minutes of doing nothing but meditate to slow down my obsession over how much sugar I had had was enough for me to get started to the next work. But when I look at the bigger picture, I see that I'm actually healthy, and my biggest parameters for my health is weight, and I'm maintaining that for like many years. So if my weight is under control, everything is okay, right? But I also have another parameter, which is like my skin. So if my skin is clear, I don't have any acne, that means my sugar is okay. The next parameter for my health is my allergies. If my nose, because I have a deviated septum, if it gets blocked, then I recognize this side is closed completely. And the allergies I have noticed comes with some cheeses and some sugary substances. So if my nose is open, that means I'm okay. So then when I think like that, like I'm overall okay, I shouldn't really worry about like my brain trying to shame me for having those 2 cups of tea, which is causing me drowsiness. I shouldn't really have a problem. I could just like dismiss my brain's suggestion of, oh, you shouldn't have had that. And you might think, like someone who has not done the work of breaking your emotional eating habits, you might think this is too much. She's crazy. What is she even talking about? Hear me on this. When you're trying to lose weight, like 30 kilo, 20 kilo, 10 kilos, 60 kilos, You can either go for a surgery, which will staple your stomach and stop making you eat, or you could go on a very, very strict restrictive diet, which will like force you to not eat, or you manage your mind so that you don't really eat that, like, you don't really overeat or eat all the unhealthy stuffs. When you start managing your mind, like suppose you're not doing those two things because they're extreme, but if you just like start to manage your mind, you just start doing that, this is what will happen. Your brain will constantly start thinking about all the ways you think about food. So when I was like judging myself for having those 2 cups of teas with sugar, I was like, why do I do that? And the question was, why did I have those cup of teas? It was not on my plan. So why did I have it? So that brings me to the topic for the day, which is like, should we plan for sugar? Now, I used to actually plan for sugar tea, sugar coffee for my next day, because I always recommend my clients plan 24 hours ahead of time. And I used to plan that because there were coaches who would be like, just plan something which you know you will eat. And that is important when you want to build that relationship that you are someone who actually does what you plan to do. So it's important then. Unfortunately for me, what had started to happen was my brain and my body had enough evidence that sugar is bad. Understand, you are always an expert of your life. So if your brain thinks that sugar is bad, no matter how much you plan it, your brain will always be like, but why did I do that? Like if I tell you, yeah, just plan some chips, you're going to be like, excuse me, I'm here to get coached on losing weight, not gaining weight. And yet you are still eating it. So there are coaches who will be like, no, no, let's just plan it and see. Because what the intention is that we reach a place where you actually plan something and you follow the plan. But in my case, because I'm doing this work for the past 4, 5 years, I have enough evidence of how sugar actually harms me. It actually makes me sick. Like I would easily catch viruses, which my daughter brings in from school. So I assume that, the sugar is actually affecting my immunity. And there is still research ongoing about all of this. All I understand right now as a physician and as a coach and someone who just like reads about health, who likes to optimize their health, I found out there's certain foods which are inflammatory, which are damaging to our body. And sugar is one of them, artificial sugar. So there was that evidence. And also there was evidence of how fantastic I felt every time I didn't have sugar for days or weeks. Like it was just amazing. There was no hunger craving, because once you take off sugar from your diet, in like matter of 4, 5 days, if you are able to manage your mind and not eat any sugar, like sometimes some people will just not bring anything and they manage it for a few days, the hunger actually disappears. The hunger cravings, all of that disappears. Or if you learn to allow hunger, that also, then your brain will not make it a problem even if you get hungry. So the hunger disappears, first of all, when you take off sugar. The cravings disappear. There is no more brain fogging, which happens after a large meal or just like a meal. There's no drowsiness. There's no shame of any kind because you are eating healthy. There is no guilt. There is mental clarity. And also, what happens is when you actually start to remove sugar from your meal, you actually start solving your emotional problems. Because in the past, what I used to do and what all of us do, we use food as a coping mechanism. We use food to feel better. Like some people will just go and smoke cigarettes. Some people will just go and play games on the phone. Some people will just check their Instagrams and see how many people liked. Some people will just go and just check their inbox to see who has mailed. If they're waiting for something especially, they'll just keep on constantly doing that. So you can decide like, okay, if food or sugar is something which I keep going to, like you might not have the awareness to it, but if you just decide that, if that's what I'm constantly going to, and I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to give myself sugar, and what's going to happen is you will be stuck with all those emotional problems and you will be forced to solve them. Because what are you going to do? We are not taking a paracetamol to make this feel better. We're not taking the sugar to feel better. So that's why I started solving my problems. And when you start solving your problems, you're like, ah, this is good. I don't have this problem again. Right? So there are three things which became very clear to me once I stopped planning sugar. One is that sugar is bad. Like that was understood. Second, bad feelings are really not that bad. They are just feelings. They're just sensations in your body. There are times when you feel like someone is ripping off your skin, especially when you take off sugar, like when you teach your brain that, no, I'm not going to have sugar. I'm not going to eat this. So then your brain is like, okay, so that thing is not going to do it for you. Then you just sit with this emotion and it feels really, really, really uncomfortable. But then when you start noticing, oh, it's actually just a feeling, nothing really bad happened. And maybe this is just it. This is now my new life where I get to feel the feeling and I don't really do anything about it. I just like notice it and I sit with it as if it's like my buddy for the day. And then it goes away after some time. So bad feelings are not really bad. And the third thing is that maybe I should not plan for sugar. Maybe. Yeah. So the day I asked myself, why was I planning for sugar? I found out that it was so that I can follow my plan, right? Like the way some of the coaches would teach me, like just ensure that you plan in a way that you follow your plan in a realistic way. Unfortunately, I'd reached a point where my brain was still shaming me, even when I had sugar as planned. That is the problem, the shame which comes with it. And that's why some coaches will be like, listen, just don't plan for sugar. Like, especially if you're someone who's trying to cut down alcohol. Some people will say, just reduce the alcohol, plan for like, instead of 5 drinks, you'll just have 2 drinks, like, and stick to the plan, stick to the plan, stick to the plan, right? And then they'll be like, just we go cold turkey. Let's just take it off completely. We're not having it and we're just going to manage our mind. We're going to just sit with the shitty emotion, right? And it's so easy to say right now for me, but there was a time when I was like, okay, I'm supposed to do that, but I don't know how to do that. You're talking about emotions here. Everything in our life is because we are scared of emotions. Everything that we fear in life is because we are fearing. So it's uncomfortable, but I want to reiterate that the worst that can happen in anyone's life is a feeling, and feeling is just a sensation in a body. Nothing really bad is happening in our body, right? So I was like, why was I doing this? What was the big idea of me planning sugars, right? And I was doing all this work so that I can take care of my body, so the from all the harmful effects of sugar, and I was planning to harm myself with sugar if I put it on plan. So that's where, like, I think 4 years down the line, after losing weight, after eating as planned, planning, eating as planned, writing down everything I eat, it occurred to me that, okay, it's time to just stop planning for sugar. Did it work? Well, I started noticing funny things, really. What I noticed was that I was I was able to follow my plan of no sugar pretty quickly. I was like, oh, okay, I can do this. And I could do it for a few days. Also, I noticed that I was not having cravings for artificial sugar, but actually I was craving for sweetness. I found out creative ways of having natural sugars in my meals, like fruits to satisfy my sweetness. And then I experimented a lot. Like I tried a lot of funny things and I came down to this one dish, which was like my go-to dish every time I crave for something sweet, which was a banana almond butter mash, which is basically you take a banana, half a banana, and take some almond butter and mash it up and have it. It's like amazing dessert. So, but for me to reach that amazing dessert, which my brain is like, okay, this will definitely satisfy my desire to have something sweet after a meal, I had to experiment a lot. So I started with banana mash, and I used to like put almonds and cocoa powder and coconut and then oil, and I used to make some chocolates, and then I was like, oh, maybe I should add banana in it. So I made some chocolates with banana in it. Didn't really taste good. Then I was like, you know what, I'll just do this and that. So lots of experimentation happened until I found this one particular dish. So Now you might not like banana mash. You might like some grapes or raisins or some dry fruits which are not sugar coated, or something which is natural, not too sweet, but just sweet enough. So through my creativity, like you'll have to use your creativity too. And through your creativity, you're going to able to find something that you actually like. And you probably don't like the sugar, so you don't have to plan for sugar, but you could plan for that sweetness, that natural sweetness which comes from healthy foods which don't really harm you. So what I had done in all this process was, like, through my creativity, which is my right emotional brain function, I found something simple which my left emotional brain would love and would continue doing it for the rest of your life, because it just is so amazing. So we don't really have to deprive ourselves when we're trying to lose weight. That's the moral of the story. That's what I teach when I'm coaching someone. Because when we are constantly thinking of the deprivation that we're going to experience when we take away all this amazing food, we're just indulging in the dramatic left emotional brain. But we have four parts of our brain. There is left thinking, strategic brain, left emotional, scared brain, right thinking, strategic brain, the loving, kind one, and the right emotional brain, which is creative and like a toddler who's curious. So we can engage our playful, curious, right emotional brain to come up with new recipes that we love. We can engage our right thinking brain to be kind to ourselves every time the left emotional brain is attacking us with judgments and shame. And we can always trust our left thinking brain to plan the next day's meal, which is like nutritious, delicious, something which we would love and have for the rest of our lives. So you don't really have to be in your left emotional brain always. We have all these other parts as well. So this is a step-by-step process. It's not just going to happen because you listen to this podcast episode. It takes effort. Now, if you want to get started with this process, I want you to reach out to me, or you can listen to all the podcasts that I have on this series and understand what I'm actually teaching. What I offer is you plan your meals, or even better, first write down what you're eating. Then, from that place, ask yourself what worked, what didn't work, what I'll do differently tomorrow, and then plan your meal. Understand where your mind is right now and then plan for tomorrow. That way you are like meeting yourself where you are right now. You're not like really pushing your primitive brain tomorrow to follow the strict diet. There is no need to plan a strict diet. All right. Now, if you're someone who needs that emotional support to go from where you are, trying all the weight loss strategies, trying all the exercise, trying all the meals, monotonous, boring meals, and still have not lost this 10, 20, 30 kilos of weight, and want to lose it once and for all without experiencing deprivation, just by managing your mind and solving the emotional problems that you use food to solve, please reach out to the link in my bio and set up a clarity call. All right, my friend, that's it for today, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.